Hi, everybody. Brad Truax from Eastman's Woodlands and Wildlife Committee. Today, we're going to talk about the red fox. The red fox is one of the most commonly seen wild animals here at Eastman. You're likely to see them out on the golf course, and you may see them almost anywhere here at Eastman. Their weight may be anywhere from 5 to 30 pounds. The vixens, those are the females, are typically 15 to 20% less than males in terms of size and weight. Foxes are lighter than similar sized dogs because their bones are less dense. That's important when it comes to their leaping ability. And though their coat is classically red, the color may vary considerably depending on multiple factors, including the season. Their chest and their belly are white, their feet are black, several areas on the body and tail have dark stripes. They have long, bushy tails that have a white tip, and they have anal scent glands, and they use those and the urine to mark their territories or their caches of food. And they have very keen sense of hearing, vision, and smell, which makes them good hunters. They can run up to 30 to 45 miles an hour, and their leaping ability is legendary. We're going to show a video of that in a minute. The red foxes are both solitary and social animals. They usually are solitary when they're hunting, but they may live in pairs or small families. And the male and the female live with their kits. The kits, particularly the female ones, may stay on to help with the newer kits. Red foxes, again, tend to be solitary except during mating season, which begins in January and lasts through early March. They tend to call each other at night by barks or high pitched screams. And that high pitched, almost blood curdling scream that people have often attributed to the fisher is actually coming from the fox. And we'll hear that in a minute. They also use the scream in defending their territory. Uh, Again, red foxes mate from January to early March, and the gestation period is 49 to 58 days. The red foxes breed in the spring. Again, that gestation period, 49 to 58 days. And the average litter size is about 4 to 6 kits, but as many as 13 have been accounted in the past. The kits suckle for about 6 to 8 weeks, though they begin eating solid foods brought in by their parents as early as 3 weeks. And they may start to leave the den at 3 to 4 weeks. They typically reach adult size at about 6 to 8 months and sexual maturity at 9 to 10 months, and they leave the family in the fall. Here's the red fox kits playing. Red foxes may den in winter, but usually they just curl up out in the open. They wrap their tail around themselves, tuck in their noses, and rest. And on real cold nights, they may reclaim a den or create a new one. This is showing an unusual kind of den that they create. They usually live in the open in vegetated areas, but again, they may also burrow into hills, slopes, or steep banks. And when they build dens, they do it in well drained soils or among tree roots. And the burrows are often divided into a den and temporary burrows, which consist of only a small passage or a cave, basically for concealment. So, what do red foxes eat? Their diet consists mainly of small rodents. They may also target rabbits, squirrels, game birds, and occasionally they'll eat reptiles or invertebrates, and very rarely young deer. And very rarely they might eat a small pet like a cat. They also will eat fruit and vegetable matter, particularly when their small mammals are not readily available. And their scat readily reflects what their diet looks like. This is the red fox. They typically hunt in the morning before sunrise or in the late evening. There he's got a mouse, and their keen sense of hearing, smell, and vision make them very good hunters. But red foxes especially like small rodents. There he's chasing a small mouse, and squirrels. There he's got a squirrel in his mouth. Red foxes have an uncanny ability to find their prey beneath the snow. They have a very keen sense of hearing that helps them locate the prey. And they interestingly use Earth's geomagnetic field to help them hunt in the snow. Many of their leaps in snow come up empty, but when they face north, they catch prey 75% of the time. That's simply incredible. And we'll show this video in a minute. This is showing the fox leaping.
The fox. This clever canine has an amazing set of skills. Deep snow covers the black hills of the Dakotas, and hidden under that icy blanket, field mice are stirring. The odds of catching anything might seem hopeless, but not to him. An enormous leap to catch a critter under 3 feet of snow. But how the heck did he do it? He's homing in on something. But it takes immense concentration, and he needs complete quiet. His ears can pick up the faintest scamper from beneath the snow. But there's a catch. He almost always comes up empty-handed, unless he's facing north. But how's that possible? As unbelievable as it sounds, scientists now think he's actually homing in on the magnetic field of the planet, using it to calculate and plot his trajectory. The kind of math missiles use to hit their targets. Just the slightest distraction can throw him off. But if he's got the North Pole in his sights, he's guaranteed a meal nearly 75% of the time.
Pretty incredible. One thing we often see some fox scat out at, either on our trails or on the golf course or other areas here at Eastman. This is just showing their poop, which looks somewhat like dog poop. Again, you can see that some of the tapered edges and so on. And the fox scat generally reflects what they've been eating. So fox scat usually is lighter and more twisted than dog scat. And it typically has fur and small bones in it because they were eating small mammals. And it may have berries and seeds depending on what they've been eating. Fox tracks, again, are typical canine tracks. Again, this is showing 4 different canines. The fox is down here, which basically is the smallest compared to the wolf, the coyote, and a large dog. But you can see in the fox tracks, typically the claws do show, and you have this typical X here that's characteristic of canine tracks as opposed to feline tracks. Here's a fox video courtesy of Richard Sachs here at Eastman, and it shows the trotting pattern.
Good as it is and as bouncy as it is, it always is sort of taken to the next level when you have someone who knows how to string a good melody together and to rap and sing.
Notice the limp in the right rear leg.
Is like the counterpart because of that. that, of course, is Forever, which is the lead single from the record. I think something that I've noticed in Emine's sort of progression as a pop musician in the last 10 years is that he really has had a marked improvement in his.
And again, we noticed that the right rear leg in the video in the previous slide was limping. That was almost certainly due to an injury to the leg or something in the paw of that leg. But paralytic rabies also begins in a limb where an infective bite occurred. So if you see a fox that's limping, you might be concerned about the possibility that it's a rabid fox. The vixen in that particular video was observed over a long time, so the limp was not due to rabies in that case. But you'd especially want to avoid a limping fox. And speaking of rabies, the common myths that anytime you see a fox in the daytime is rabid is an incorrect myth. Foxes do get rabies. They may contract it and transmit rabies, but they're far less likely to have rabies than bats, raccoons, or skunks. And interestingly, the strain of rabies in foxes is rarely transmitted to humans. As before, the common myth that any fox you see in the daytime is likely rabid is incorrect. What are the signs of rabies in a fox? Well, aggressive behavior would be the most common. Remember, foxes are relatively shy, and they usually shy away from humans. The opposite is also true. If you see what looks like an unusually tame fox, that may be a sign of rabies. And again, limping, stumbling, clumsiness, circling behavior, or other erratic movements may be due to rabies in the fox. And foxes usually die within a week of showing signs of rabies. A suspected rabid fox did attack 4 people in New Hampshire last October. That was in the Rochester, New Hampshire area, and it actually involved 4 people who were postal workers, one of whom was bit. So if you suspect a rabid fox, don't approach it. Keep your pets away from it and contact New Hampshire Fish and Game's Wildlife Division, and you can see the phone number there. And if you do get bit by a fox or were exposed to the saliva of a fox, you should contact your physician immediately. And don't forget, make sure your dog's rabies shots are up to date, because your dog is much more likely to be involved with the fox than you are. The average lifespan of a fox in the wild is 5 years or less, and they do have certain predators. The predators might include wolves, coyotes, bobcats, and occasionally large predatory birds like eagles may prey upon a small fox. And again, they often succumb to automobiles. They're also susceptible to rabies and the mange. This is showing a red fox with the mange. Mange is caused by scabies, which is an infestation by mites, and it tends to be fatal for the fox. And again, it's one of nature's ways of culling the fox population. Eastman's red fox population seems to vary significantly from year to year. I can remember when we first moved to Eastman, there were a ton of red fox around. And then over the next couple years, there were very few. Well, we've often wondered why that is. And the most likely reason is it's probably related to the availability of food. In some places, if the squirrel, chipmunk, and rabbit populations begin to grow, foxes make a comeback shortly thereafter. And in all likelihood, it's related to the cyclical nature of our nut-bearing trees. Now remember, the fox, even though they may eat acorns or a few things that fall from trees, they're much more likely to be eating small mammals and so on. But what happens is that when the nut-bearing trees are in an off year, such as 2 years ago, we had a dearth of both acorns and beech nuts. And that first affects the population of smaller mammals. Okay, well, when there are fewer smaller mammals available, you're going to have fewer red fox available. Then when you have a year where you have a boom of acorns and beech nuts, such as we had last fall, you'll start to see the small mammal population increase, and subsequently we'll see an increase in the red fox population. Also, certain rodenticides in the past have reduced the number of deer mice, also called the white-footed mice, that foxes depend on as food sources. In recent years, much of our snow cover has been icy or crusty, making it very hard for the fox to grab small rodents that are underneath. Interestingly, foxes on the golf course will steal a ball right in the middle of the fairway. We've actually seen a fox walk out in the middle of a fairway when we were about 50 yards away, pick up the ball and run over and cash it in one of its locations on the side of the fairway. So they may store these golf balls in foliage adjacent to the fairway. At Eastman, we've seen foxes most often on the second and fourth holes. So again, that's a little bit about red foxes. We hope you've learned something from this. And once again, this is Woodlands and Wildlife Committee, all about red foxes.